I just want to accept a person fully because I can see a person fully, just as I hope I can expect they would do for me. Hello, everybody. Today, an adult man told me I should smile more. I don't think he'll be repeating that to grown women anytime soon. You're welcome. But in all seriousness, let's talk tarot. So, this is a VR to Mary Grace. Have I been saying your last name wrong all along? Because I don't know this last name. I don't know how to say it. I've been saying Faran, as in far off, far away. Is it Fjörn? Is it Fjörn? Is it? I heard somebody say your last name, I don't know, just so beautifully. And I thought, is that how you pronounce this name that I don't know? I don't know. I think you watched some of my videos, probably this one, right? Because it's a unasked for VR, but still a VR to your videos. So let me know. Mary Grace's content is good VR material, to me at least. This one, it was uploaded a while ago, but I'm doing my VR now, and it's an unasked one, but you know, my relationship with the faces and people in my tarot deck, uploaded on October 1st. Been a while, but it was such a nice conversation, and I just wanted to give my perspective on it a little bit, because Mary Grace's go-to deck is the Morgan Greer, which is of course a Rider-Waite Smith system, Rider-Waite Smith clone, but very much its own style, much more vibrant colors, and everything is very close to the face actually. And I have had that deck, but for a very short time. It just wasn't for me. But other decks also, where it's really zoomed in on the face, just like with the Morgan Greer, which, you know, at this stage is a classic deck. But all of those face decks, to me, honestly, just didn't tell me enough, didn't give me enough, didn't really speak to me, because I was actually missing a lot of the surroundings, because that's also how we make a story. We find meaning and symbolism in everything in the cards, obviously, not just the people themselves or what they're wearing or what their facial expression is. But something struck me in, I think, a tarot deck video that I did a while ago, or my last tarot deck video, in which I talked about facey decks that just zoom in too close, where I feel I cannot read that deck, because sometimes it just, I don't know, some people are difficult to read, and with some of those decks, I felt like I was looking at people who I personally find difficult to read in real life. You know what I mean? Not with all of them, obviously. Some of them you immediately see a facial expression or some kind of a click or some type of recognizing aspect. You recognize things about yourself. But in decks like soul decks that I really enjoyed for what it was, it just wasn't for me, and it was just too facey. So that was one of my realizations. So you might think, well, why are you doing a VR about faces in the tarot then? Because there are some faces that I know very, very well. I also feel they're real people. They exist somewhere in the astral. They know me in return. We've had conversations. We're acquaintances or friends, or we're getting to know one another. And that is just due to having a relationship with your tarot deck or tarot decks. But it's not an infinite amount of decks. It's just your tarot decks. So this is just another excuse for me to talk about my 3 most used decks: Centennial Rider-Waite Smith, Triomphe de la Luna Paradoxical, and my Thoth. This is a greenie, still my favorite. I don't think these decks will ever be dethroned or something. They will ever, I don't think they'll ever move away from top three. For sure, I can tell, well, maybe not for sure because things change all the time. But anyway, top five, I expect they will still always be top five. Let's start with the deck that most people are familiar with. These faces we know so well. For anyone who has learned tarot with the Rider-Waite Smith or has done a deep dive with Rider-Waite Smith or is doing constant deep dives with the Rider-Waite Smith, we know these faces and these faces know us as well. You know, looking at the Chariot, this beautiful prince, it's not as if we're only looking at the sphinxes, the wings here, the background, the chariot, the stars in the chariot, and the half moons, and all of those extra symbolism. I mean, these are actually esoteric occult symbols, right? So we do need to look at those. There's a lot of meaning in them. Also, the river flowing behind him. But what about his face? What about his posture? So much about the facial expressions, but even just facial features, they can say so much about our relationship to them. So this is one of the reasons, actually, the faces, why I always preferred Rider-Waite Smith decks with Pixie's original artwork. Because if it's redrawn, it can be really nice. There can be maybe more detail that's shown because some of these decks can be very blurry. I learned with the yellow box Rider-Waite Smith because that's all I knew at the time, and it definitely was blotchy and the colors were not my style, at least. But maybe then if it's redrawn, it's also recolored. Obviously, the colors is the main reason why I think the Rider-Waite Smith is redrawn in the first place, was redrawn in the first place. But that means that the faces also get a makeover. And that never sat particularly right with me because I need to recognize this person in the world card. I need to see my fierce but still loving Queen of Wands on her throne. I need to see the, I don't know, maybe kind of long face of the magician. It's all about gazing into their eyes and getting to know them on a human level almost. Even if we say now the tarot archetypes were never supposed to be human or never supposed to depict human beings. They're all actually celestial, astral gods or anything like that. They certainly do look like people. You know, this could be my eccentric neighbor in the Rider-Waite Smith especially, don't you agree? They look very earthy. They look like people we could come across on a daily basis, or, well, I don't know, maybe some kind of a medieval fair or something. But I must say, it certainly did help me, especially with the quartz, which is a difficult thing to learn for most tarot readers, including myself. A difficult thing to connect to find the meanings, really. And that's basically also where we really start to make a distinction in what type of reader we are actually going to be, because the Knight of Cups could mean you're gonna get pregnant, or you're going to meet your twin flame in the course of a month, or you look at this card and think of it as a personality, or you look at it in a more elemental way, like this is the fiery part of water, and what does that mean in advice type of sense, and what is this role really, this archetype role, what does it mean, and what does it, I mean, I know the majors are supposed to be the archetypes, right? But I use that word for minors, including the quartz as well. So That's just how I see it. But but you see, it's then still about advice and more of a psychological aspect to the cards instead of more like maybe the prediction thing. And I'm not saying one is better than the other one. I'm actually saying I think that learning the court cards is a pivotal moment most of the time, which of course can evolve and change, can do a 180, but that does really dictate, at least for a while, how we do tarot readings. And what I was saying is getting to know these people, not just in the court cards, because in the Rider-Waite Smith, there's in pretty much every card except for the Eight of Wands and the Three of Swords, right? Pretty much every card, there's a person depicted. So we get a lot of faces in this deck, even though it's not zoomed in on the face. It's very much about everything in the card. But it's a people deck. It's not a face deck, it's a people deck. I think that I can work with. I mean, obviously, I still have this deck. I still love this deck. I still work with this one. But I'm very thankful that I was able to look at facial features and facial expressions, and as I said, body language while learning the tarot, or to learn the tarot rather, because I now love the Marseille as well, and I also love the Thoth. But you see, obviously these are the Marseille pips, although in this deck I am lucky there are faces. And in the Thoth, this is what the pips look like, the numbered cards. So actually a little bit more to go on with the Thoth deck, because we do get just the suits, but then also we get actually a background and a depiction and a kind of an indication to what it means. So one step at a time, right? Just to go back to the Rider-Waite Smith, I think it was the right choice to start with. Ooh. I'm not saying this is a beginner deck. I'm saying this is a good deck to begin with. It definitely was the right thing for me. At the time also, this deck was the tarot. I didn't know any other tarot decks. So this was the one that came to mind. Obviously, it's iconic and a classic. And you know, they definitely all look like people. That's just one of the ways we can connect to them. So I never actually did that for the pip cards, but I definitely looked at the court cards in order to make sense of them and assigned people I knew to them. So this was after I had already studied a little bit, because you could of course just do that looking at facial features, and maybe you see that, I don't know, the Knight of Swords looks like your uncle or whatever. It wasn't really like that, although must say that did definitely help the Queen of Swords in a Rider-Waite Smith, great-grandmother. And I think that I'm finally touching upon what Mary Grace was explaining in her video, which was, there she is, because I assigned people I knew to the court cards of the Rider-Waite Smith, it also opened up this world of what each and every card means. And that actually was personal interpretation, definitely, because it didn't have anything to do with the study of this card, with the symbols that we can see in this card. The red bracelet, the sword sticking upwards, straight up, the angel face, the butterflies, the clouds, the blue on her dress. But still, it helped so much because I was able to actually get to know these people with what I knew, these courts, with what I knew about the people in real life. So once I knew a little bit about the courts, I started assigning people I knew in real life to every court card. And for some courts, I knew, that's that person, that's one person. And for other courts, it can be that one, either or. And the silly thing about this is you shouldn't think that these courts are those people, right? You have to let go of that idea at some point. This is just a tool and a way and a method to learn the tarot, I guess, or to have a better understanding and connection and relationship to your tool, to your tarot deck, spiritual tool. The good thing about it, though, is that you can find and see and recognize, and then, of course, write down, journal about it, the personality traits of these people and put them into these court cards or apply them to the court cards. Because the courts, they're not going to change. They're already here. You know, this deck was created in 1909. Yeah, 1909. So it's been around since 1909. None of us have been around since 1909. Math. But assigning and recognizing, obviously, it has to make sense, personality traits of these people that you know to the court cards or any other card in the tarot deck means that you get to know the people in your tarot deck, that you get to look at the faces, recognize the facial expression, all of that. I don't want to repeat too much. The extra good thing that happened there with this method for me is I was able to see the good in every court card, in every personality, in every role that they represent, but also all of the traits that are maybe a little less good. You might even say bad. Everyone has good personality traits and bad personality traits, depending on the day, depending on it doesn't matter. Everyone has good and bad. Everyone has light and dark within them. So this reminded me of Crowley's writings about the personality traits of these court cards in his deck that Lady Frida Harris drew, and also what these cards mean and represent when they are so-called ill-dignified. This basically means, yeah, we have all these positive messages that come from these cards, but also you can kind of see them as real human beings, even though, especially in the Thoth deck, they are not, but you can see them as that, and also acknowledge their weaknesses or lesser points. We're really truly just talking about a person's strong suits, but then also their weakness. And that was just so interesting to me because I realized with this, it's not a tag, with this video, how I already found that in this deck. Now, I'm not saying this ill-dignified thing is a Crowley thing or a Thoth thing. We are always supposed to find the good and the bad, or, really that balance, really the full spectrum and the extremes also within every single tarot card and tarot reading. Why not? But it certainly came up and it helped me a lot. For instance, the Page of Wands, for the longest time, I actually assigned these personality traits to me because I was in the middle of a huge project that took so much time and dedication that all I could think of was this goal that I had to achieve, this goal that I was doing. And at the same time, boy, was I inexperienced. So that also brought me the message of, maybe I think I can do this, but I can't do it exactly in the way that I had in mind. I need to compromise more. I need to be more realistic. And maybe it is just too big of a project for where I am right now. Definitely some reality checks there in finding myself in this particular card and role. I have to take a little break. I hope you don't mind. I will see you all for the B-side because More is coming. All right. We can keep going. And doggy is hungry. Je moet even wachten. She's mad. Is it feeding time already? Yeah, it kind of is. Could have done that just a second ago, but no. I also just want to get this out because Mary Grace was talking about so many other things. Like she has these psychic interests. And so she's also talking about um, the fact that, well, let's look at the star. Why not? This is also a person, right? The fact that she no longer needs to look at all of these symbols and, as I said, esoteric occult stuff, hidden secret stuff, knowledge in the cards. She can actually just look at the faces of the people and see what the message means, hear what they actually have to say to her in that particular moment. I think that's beautiful. Why not read the tarot in this way? It's like the intuition thing, but it's also because we know these people so well. Just like with certain friendships in real life, you can just know someone so well that they don't need to say a word or they don't need to even move an inch and you already know what they're thinking. I suspect it's the same thing there of what she's talking about. Now, interestingly, I think I will never be that type of reader, I think, because as I said in the beginning of this video, I'm not a fan of facey decks. That's why I got rid of the soul deck. That's why I think that's kind of why also I didn't really like the Morgan Greer. But that doesn't mean it's not important what these expressions and, as I keep saying, body language, stances, and all of that, and movements and gestures look like or mean to me. I always forget the beginning of my sentences. I think the important thing for me is knowing the people or the creatures in my deck. Let's look at my favorite one. I've met this King of Swords. He's a bit of a difficult person for sure, but those difficulties make him the master that he is, the genius that he is. I definitely floated around in this sea with the Knight of Cups. And I feel I know what his goal is in life, what he wants to achieve, what he is here to do, why he is doing what he's doing, why he's on this quest. I feel I know that because I've had these conversations with him in a sense, and therefore I also know what he is willing to give up to reach his goal, for instance. Oh yeah, the King of Wands, eccentric fellow. These to me are just demon creature friends. They're not actually human beings. They live in another realm. I have my whole Triomphe realm. Long story short, I know the King of Wands in any system, really, in any deck. But I feel especially in this deck, because this one's my favorite. This one's the one I read with most of the time, and I just love most. It's just my favorite deck. What are you gonna do? This King of Wands cares deeply for a couple of things, and then, on the other hand, doesn't give anything about a whole bunch of other things. Very selective in where he puts his energy. And I actually respect that about him because he's very passionate and he gets things done. But yeah, he is a flawed personality as well. See what I mean? As in, we see these good personality traits, or I don't even really want to say good and bad, but we see inspiring personality traits. But we quickly see, if we are honest, just like we read people we meet in real life, we quickly see what their flaws or weaknesses are, because they can care deeply about one thing, as I said about the King of Wands, but then really neglect other parts of life, which maybe you personally find important. So that might be a little bit of an issue between you two. Know what I mean? Doesn't have to be a big problem, doesn't have to be a deal breaker, because any deal breaker we come across in the tarot, we're gonna have to use and deal with. We're gonna have to shadow work that stuff, because we need to find the deal breakers within ourselves, you know, in order to become more whole. That's the whole idea. I honestly think it's totally okay, maybe even better, to get to know people, whether it's tarot people, tarot creatures, or in real life, and acknowledge their, as I said, inspiring personality traits, inspiring aspects, friendly aspects, and at the same time to quickly be aware without judgment of their imperfections. I don't know. I always really like to just have that honest, open relationship right from the beginning, right from the start. It's like you can kind of see through some stuff, some barriers, and without trying to read people or trying to figure them out or whatever. I don't want to do any of that. It's just the acknowledgement of the full spectrum of that human being standing in front of you, because I want to accept people as they are. And of course, we can have discussions or conflicts like with everything. But this video is taking a turn. I hope you're enjoying this. But what I'm trying to say is, I just want to accept a person fully, because I can see a person fully, just as I hope I can expect they would do for me. That's how we get good relationships. And we can maybe even help each other out and elevate each other, because nobody grows in a linear fashion. Everyone grows a little bit here and not at all there. So we meet and we have relationships so that we can, well, have fun, but also so that we can grow and learn from others. Last thing I want to say is Thoth deck. This is such a special tarot deck. Oh my God, I love it so much. Every time I work with it, I love it more. Have you noticed that there are not many people in this deck, or humanoid? I don't know what the word is, what the term is, because these are actually not supposed to be people on Earth. It's a very cosmic deck, as I keep saying. This in the universe is a version of Nuit, is a version of Babylon, right? So it's not as if we are looking, and we can see already, we're not looking at a human lady. I mean, even in a Rider-Waite Smith, I don't think it's supposed to be a human person. But here it's just a little bit more clear that we are looking at, I think we are looking at auras and energies and colors and vibrations, happenings, rather than looking at people. And have you noticed that we actually never see a face in the Thoth deck? Check this out. So we've seen this one, right? The Princess of Swords, a Lust card. We see the idea of a face, or where a face is supposed to go. Just in case you had never noticed, you're very welcome. I just probably blew your mind. Well, although I'm pretty sure this is a very known fact. And where we do see a face that actually, or a clear face, you know, with pupils and everything, that actually has meaning, that actually is related to Crowley's astrological chart, I believe. because we get this one, the Prince of Wands, has a clear face with pupils, and also the Queen of Swords. Okay, well, I can't find the Queen of Swords right now, but I just want to show you, even you saying, oh, what are you saying, Anna? We can see clear faces here in the Empress. She's looking sideways. She's not looking at us, and we don't see her eyes. And here, the Hangman, definitely something about him, eyes closed, maybe even face distorted by water or something. And even here in the Temperance card, or sorry, the Art card, the looking down, so we don't see the eyes. So it's a deck with people turned away from the camera, turned away from the focal point, turned away from the reader. So it's very mysterious in that itself. But that doesn't mean that we don't get to know these creatures. That doesn't mean that we don't get to know these people. So what I'm saying is, it doesn't need to be a facey deck for us to understand what we're looking at, who we are dealing with, and what they are telling us. Just look at this death dancing on the bottom of the ocean. And it really does still, without the faces, I'm trying to say in a very long-winded way, it doesn't mean that we don't get a very deep and meaningful relationship with this artwork, with these, well, they are gods, they are archetypes, they are energies and essences and entities. To wrap it up, Thoth deck, amazing, do have a strong relationship with the entities in that deck, depicted in that deck, even though not at all a facey deck. But still, it's just something about, it doesn't, for me, I guess it doesn't have to be necessarily the faces, even though I definitely loved starting with that. With the Rider-Waite Smith quartz, for instance. We know these faces now, we know these people. And here it's more like, as I said, looking at auras or something, even though I don't know anything about auras. But it's more like as if people become see-through and we start to see beyond and through and further than just the surface things. And that part is becoming more clear in this stage of the tarot process. On the other hand, with my favorite deck, it definitely was healing to see in every card where there's a creature that I could definitely relate to every single creature, because they all have these wonderful half faces. So half light, half dark. Every single one of them. And seeing that and just making this world around this entire deck made me feel really welcome, and it definitely meant more to me than I thought. To sum up, Triomphi I see as friends, like best friends, friends for life kind of thing. Rider-Waite Smith I see as people I maybe have around me more closely, more tangible. And then Thoth is completely detached. But still, the connection is just really strong. So yeah, this was my Unasked for VR to Mary Grace's video, and I hope it was somewhat enlightening or entertaining. We'll see. Did I smile enough? I'm gonna have to feed the dog now and feed myself as well, for that matter. If you like this video, please leave a like. If you're new here, let me know so I can properly welcome you to this online space. And I think this is pretty much it for this week. Thanks so much for being here. This was a lot of fun. Hope you still enjoy these weird unasked for VRs I'm doing, but that is just part of this community, isn't it? Is it a community? We don't actually have the same zip code, do we? But online tarot community, I guess that's a thing. Thanks so much for being here, and I will see you all very, very soon. Take care, everyone. And smile.